Hey everybody, Steve Sheets here with Ghost Ranch Communications, bringing you a quick tutorial about basically just how to edit tables in PowerPoint. I know when I was learning how to edit tables in PowerPoint, it drove me crazy. If you're watching this, it probably drives you crazy too, and you're not alone. I know it drives a lot of designers crazy. Basically, the problem is that when you're trying to edit a table, you actually have to do things kind of backwards from what you might expect. Stick around, I'll show you exactly the part I'm talking about when I say that, and hopefully everything will make a whole lot more sense very soon. Now, when you have a table in PowerPoint, by default, it's probably going to look a lot like this. If I select the table, this table design tab becomes available. Click on that. You can see there's all sorts of default design options, which kind of change depending on the particular theme or template that you're using. And a lot of them are really bad. You know, that is a great starting point right there. But it also says best match for document. So this option is not always going to exactly look like this or be available. So we're not going to click that to use it as a starting point. I will go through and do everything manually just so you can see how it's done. But the very first thing I do is basically strip out all the formatting and just make everything super plain, so that I can have a nice clean starting point as I move towards the little bit of design that I need just to make it more human readable, again, once I've removed all of this. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off header row. I will make the header row look different from the rest of the text, but I'm just going to do it manually. I'm going to turn off banded rows because they drive me crazy. I'm going to turn off the fill because unless there's something going on in the background, we don't need a fill. And yeah, if I was going to use one, it would probably be white or just something very simple, probably not baby blue. Let's see, first order of business, let's go ahead, we'll design that header row. Just going to select everything here. I'm going to make the font a little bigger. That's probably big enough. You know, if these are all 10, having that 12, it's big enough, I can tell the difference. I'll make it bold, so there's 2 degrees of separation there, and now it's looking like a header. We can also go ahead, let's put like a really light fill color on that just to give it a tiny bit extra separation. And just this little 5% gray is a really nice subtle fill. I do like that. And with that fill on, I can see that I've still got some white lines on this table. We are going to remove those as well. So I'm going to go ahead, highlight everything again, go back to the table design tab. There's this borders button with a drop down. If I click the drop down, I can choose no border, turn all the borders off. Now it's showing me where the edge of all these cells are because I have them selected. There's not actually lines there right now. So this is a good step in the right direction. We got a whole lot of the visual noise removed. But now we've got some really weird things happening just because some people like to have numbers aligned to the right and words aligned to the left. Personally, I would just left align everything or center it or something and call it a day. But you know, if you have a client or someone who you're designing things for that really just wants to keep that right alignment for numbers, let's figure out a good workaround to deal with that. Which what I'm going to do is turn up basically the margins on all of these cells so that the right margin is going to push all these right aligned things a lot closer to the header. So it'll still be right aligned, but it will be a whole lot closer to the header for that column and a lot more human readable. And we'll do some other stuff with the margins too. Going to highlight everything again, right click, and you see here it says format shape by the bottom of my right click menu. Depending on what you right click, you'll have different words. You know, it might say format background, format text, format image, whatever. I right click the table, so it says format shape. Either way, when you click format whatever it says, it opens your formatting pane, and we need to go to this tab over here in the formatting pane where it says text options. Click that, go to these text box options, and here we've got our margins. Left margin, I'm going to turn that up a little bit, and right margin, I'm going to turn up a whole lot more. Let's see. Yeah, it's got everything closer. Let's stick with that for now and see what happens. Now, I did lose a lot of the table off the bottom of the screen because we got a lot of text wrapping going on. So let's fix that. Again, we are here on the table design tab right now because the table is still selected. I also have this layout tab that I can get to. And on the layout tab, there's all sorts of handy buttons such as distribute rows, which is going to make all your row heights the same. I'm going to use distribute columns, which is going to make all of my column widths the same. And now I've only got one title here that's wrapping. Everything else is fitting in one line. I've accidentally grabbed something I didn't want to, so I'm just going to let go and Control Z, Command Z to undo that. And then I'm going to carefully select this header row, and basically I'm going to take those right margins back down on the header row, because I don't mind if that text in the header row, extends over to the right. I think that's just fine. And now we have our content within the column much closer to the header itself. So that is great. Next steps, let's get a little bit more vertical spacing between all these rows. I'm going to go back to these text options over here, and I'm going to turn my top margin and bottom margin up a little bit, so we've got a little bit more vertical spacing. I'll deselect that so we can see what we're dealing with here. This is all looking really good. I do think it would be a little bit hard to read from left to right. I mean, this is a very wide table. There's a lot of space in between these rows where my eye could potentially get lost, especially as I'm trying to read across the middle. I don't think it's too bad, but just to help make things easy, I am going to bring some horizontal lines back between all of these rows in the middle. So the way that you do that, and this is the part that I think is backwards, and I think where a lot of people get confused and frustrated. So I know that I'm going to put lines that are horizontal in between all of these rows. I know that I want those lines to be pretty thin. I might even go with a half point. We'll see what happens. I know that I'm going to want them to be a pretty light gray. So let's just choose this like theme color gray. It's a little bit darker than the gray that's in the header. I'm okay with that. Now this does give you a pencil tool where you can go in and try to like draw lines in. I don't suggest trying to do that. I think it's really frustrating. What I do suggest doing, now that I have this style set, it didn't actually apply anything. It's just like, what do you want to do? And then you can draw it in. Or the way that I do recommend doing it is using this drop down, and you can see there's all sorts of options here that are really handy. I want inside horizontal borders, and let's see what that looks like. You can see now I have these horizontal lines that only went between the rows I had selected. I don't have a line on the bottom, which I think is great. I don't need one. I don't have a line between the header and these more like body cells here, which I also think is great because I've got a fill color on the header row. I don't need lines in between it as well. And now we've got a very readable, easy to understand table. It's nice and clean, and those steps, those edits, they can always be done differently to achieve the look that you need. That is basically what I do every time. I turn off everything, then I go in, I highlight the stuff I want. You know what, maybe like totals get bolded too, so we can draw extra attention to those. Who doesn't like to see the totals? But I don't get real crazy. Keep it simple. It's a table. It doesn't need to be a huge work of art. It just needs to get some information across quickly. And usually something that is simple is going to do that a lot more effectively and be a lot nicer to look at than a whole lot of craziness. So I hope this was super helpful and you enjoyed it. Please check us out. We are Ghost Ranch Communications. We make the art for storytelling. You can find us online at ghostranchcommunications.com. I am Steven Sheets. You are welcome to reach out to me there as well as on LinkedIn. Happy to answer questions or talk about nerdy PowerPoint, presentation, Google Slides stuff all day. No problem with that. And if you've got projects that are giving you any trouble or you think you could use some help, that is our bread and butter. That is what we specialize in. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. So please reach out, say hi. We'll be happy to hear from you. And feel free to follow us here on YouTube for more tutorials to help you out on your PowerPoint and Google Slides projects. Thanks.